Hello everyone and welcome to 5 Facts. I'm Tony Southcott and today we're here to talk about the 1989 hit Pet Sematary. This is one of the most faithful adaptations of a Stephen King novel and we're just going to dive right into it. Fact number 1, let's talk about the origins of Pet Sematary. This is a book that was really made up from real life events that happened to Stephen King. Of course, not the zombification stuff, unless he's holding out on us, but there's a few things that really did happen. Whenever he went back to teach at the University of Maine, kind of as a thank you for what they had done for his writing, his family, for everything, he was staying in a place outside of Orrington. And this road right in front of his house just kept having trucks go by so fast. And because of this, a lot of pets did get hit, and the local children there had made a pet cemetery near his yard. So whenever they actually lost their cat, they would end up burying it in that same pet cemetery. During a picnic, they actually had Owen King, one of his sons, almost walk into the road exactly like what happened in the movie. Thankfully, they were able to stop it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have their new book that they did together. Fact number 2, Zelda was actually played by a man. Mary Lambert felt that all the girls that she auditioned, especially like the 13-year-old girls, were just too cutesy and frail to really feel threatening. So she would end up hiring Andrew Habitzek. I think that's how you say his name. It's a little bit hard. And I really think this paid off because you had one of the most uncomfortable moments of the entire series in which Rachel is dealing with her sister who has meningitis. And it's just haunting, and she's so gaunt, and she's so just assertive and disgusting, and it's awful that you could say that about someone's little sister and everything, but that's what the movie's trying to sell, and it really did work. The new Pet Sematary that comes out a little bit later this year, I think sometime in April, is actually using a teenage girl for the actress for Zelda. We'll see if that pans out. I feel like that with the right actor you could pull it off, or the right actress, but I really like what they did with this one. Fact number 3. Great care was taken to not traumatize Miko Hughes. Miko Hughes is, of course, the one that plays Gage in this and is one of the most adorable kids that you'll ever see. He's just I think he was 33 months old when filming started, right under 3 years. By the time filming was done, he was at 3 years. It's one of those where it's asking a lot of a kid, and especially because they didn't actually pull twins like they usually do. Usually you want twins, identical ones, so you can kind of alternate depending on which one's in a better mood for acting. And they did do this for the older kid, for Ellie's character. That was a set of twins. But for this one, Mary Lambert felt that he was just perfect for the role and he was a natural. But they also didn't want to have him be traumatized by some of the awful, awful things that they were going to have him do. So, no, that was not a sharp scalpel. That's pretty easy. That was in the director's commentary. A lot of times when there were gore, they kind of used composite editing to make it look like he was on set whenever he wasn't. So they were able to shield a lot of that sort of stuff. Also, whenever they had him in high action scenes, it was actually a puppet. They did talk about using a little person, but so often you can't get the exact sizes right and things just don't quite look right. Like there are some slip-ups in Chucky and some other shows where they do that, and it's never quite right. So I think they did a good job here. Occasionally you might be able to guess whenever it's a puppet, especially when it's on fire, but that's just a given. They're not going to have a 3-year-old do that stunt quite yet. Fact number 4, it took 7 cats to do the role of Church. Church was a blue British short hair, and they had to use a lot of cats for this. And that's because it's so hard to train cats to actually do a myriad of tricks, so one cat was used for whenever they needed to leap up on something, another was used whenever it needed to come forward. A lot of them did different tricks. Whenever they actually put the needle in the cat and like put it to sleep, basically, that was a fake needle that just kind of receded back in, and the cat had been sedated by a veterinarian right before then, so that cat was fully fine. They took a lot of care to make sure that these cats were treated very well. According to Mary Lambert, the thing that was the hardest to do was actually to get the cat to eat the pork chop. I'm not sure why this would be so hard. My cat would be running at a pork chop like light speed, but that was difficult for them. The new Pet Sematary had to use 5 cats, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of the same effects. And it was actually just lighting techniques that they used, sort of like Blade Runner status whenever they were just getting the glowing eyes that made the cat look that much sinister. Fact number 5, popcorn facts. Whenever I don't have one giant fact, I like to throw a bunch of little ones at you, so let's get this thing rolling. This was one of the first times that Stephen King was allowed to actually adapt his own book into a screenplay, and part of this was because there was a writer's strike. During this writer's strike, they needed some new scripts from newer writers that were actually going to put some stuff out so that they could get through this strike without losing too much money. Because of this, Stephen King was able to demand that they actually film this in Maine where the story took place. And I think that this helped set the overall feel of the story. It was very authentic to what the book had, instead of sound stages and all that other stuff. There were some sound stages, such as the houses weren't big enough to actually film on the inside, so the interior shots are done in a soundstage, and then the exterior shots are done on site. But they actually built a facade over Judd's house, so that's kind of an interesting thing. It just needed to look a little more creepy. I usually don't talk about casting issues, but they almost put Bruce Campbell as the lead in this one, and I kind of wonder how that would turn out. It would have been interesting to see him play that role straight, because a lot of times, even whenever he's doing horror stuff, he's a little bit of that Ash Williams thing going on, where it's a little bravado, a little bit of over-the-topness. I don't know if that would have worked for this movie, but I would have liked to see it. Stephen King is notorious for having crossovers in his work, such as the Dark Tower series has mentions of 30 different books in it. And this is no different. Pet Sematary actually has aspects of The Shining in it. The daughter, Ellie, is basically shown to have these abilities, as she's having premonitions and dreams, things are coming true from what she sees, and basically she's able to tell what's going to happen. In the books, it's even more amplified. Mary Lambert felt that she didn't do a great job of adapting this to film, but there was only so much they could do in those time constraints. Another fact, the ending of this movie was actually reshot to be more brutal. In the original ending, she pulled the knife and then just kind of set it on his shoulder. We didn't get the sort of visceral yank back that kind of made that ending so notorious and so just visceral and interesting. So they went back and reshot that. That was one of the few times where an executive, I think, made the right call. Another weird thing, this script almost included a Windigo. And a lot of people consider that a Bigfoot. A lot of times it's a Native American demonic spirit, lots of different things. And you can actually hear it at one point in this movie whenever they get to the graveyard or the burial ground. You can hear in the background, Judd says it's a loon. It definitely is not. They just wrote it out of the script. Stephen King has always been known for having very grim aspects to his stories, where not even the kids are safe. That's usually a trope in almost all movies, that you don't have to worry that the kids are going to die. And this just makes that a part of the inciting incident. He's never been afraid to push buttons with that sort of stuff. But there's a level of grim that he brings out in this that actually made it one of the only books that he was ever scared while writing. I don't know why at this particular point in his career he was so in turmoil. But it definitely seems like it had a major effect on him. So much of this film and this book are a reflection on mortality. You're talking about a man who is willing to risk not really getting his child back because he's trying to beat death and he can't accept it. This is a doctor, a man of science who should know better but cannot accept the fact. This little lead-in with church where he saw that it worked, it just implanted an idea, and the better angels inside of him did not end up making it. And it cost him everything. It cost him every part of his family. And now his daughter is assumably orphaned off somewhere. She knew it was all coming because of The Shining. And it's just a intense and dark sequence of events that happens. There's no real winner here. And Judd isn't exactly a dark person. In the books, he's a little bit darker. But he represents kind of the bad angel, whereas the ghost represents a good angel. And they're just basically these dueling ideas. And it showed that basically he was a little bit too weak to accept what happened. And I find that fascinating we wouldn't have a movie without it, but still, it's one of those things where it just did not work out in any way, shape, or form. I think what it comes down to is what Judd said. The heart of a man is stonier. It takes a lot more to take root in stony soil. It's his emotions and his desires and this family he's built has just gotten into the soil of his heart, and he's wanting to defend it, and he wants it back, and he can't accept that it's gone. And so he makes this choice. I think that this is a very interesting movie, and it's probably one of the best Stephen King adaptations, especially for that time period where they were kind of hit or miss as far as being a good adaptation. So it's exciting to see what they're going to do with the remake coming up. But I think they did an excellent job with this one. So I'm kind of happy about the remake, kind of skeptical, kind of just all over the place. it doesn't seem like the hardest movie to remake, so we'll see how that ends up turning out. Also, major changes coming to the Human Echoes channel. We're moving our gaming content to Human Echoes Gaming, so if you want that, click the link in the description. Otherwise, it's going to be mostly movies, horror, and drinks on this channel from here on out. So thank you guys for being a part of that. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, hit subscribe, share it with friends, or check out our Patreon at patreon.com/humanechoes. Bye, everybody.